You want to reduce your risk for an ACL tear? We're going to go over the top 4 ways to decrease your risk for an ACL tear. My name is Dr. Marco Lopez, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist and co-founder of the Basketball Doctors. So let's jump into it. So an ACL, what is an ACL? An ACL is an anterior cruciate ligament. You always hear bad news about it. Everyone's tearing it when they're playing sports. The big thing with the ACL, it provides stability in the knee joint. And there's 2 ways that you can tear it, 2 common themes. One, you have a contact injury and a non-contact injury. Contact injuries, those you can't really reduce your risk for those. Those, if they hit you, you could be as strong and the best mechanics. They hit you the wrong way, you're going to tear your ACL. The non-contact are the ones that we can reduce, and these non-contact injuries make up to 75% of the ACL tears. And we're going to break down the top 4 ways to reduce your risk for these non-contact ACL injuries. All right, guys, before we go into those top 4 ways, let me just kind of really introduce the non-contact aspect of an ACL tear. Non-contact, just to kind of clarify, is whenever you're playing basketball, let's say for basketball, and you land from a jump and then your knee just kind of gives out. There's no contact, there's no one around you, or when you're going to do a Euro step and then your knee collapses, or you're going to stop and the knee kind of gives out. There's something in biomechanically or just over time that led to that. There was no external force, someone hitting you. And those, we have a real huge chance of reducing the risk of that. And the number 1 way to really start decreasing your risk for that is by strengthening your hip muscles and your ankle muscles. Specifically in the hip, your glutes. And the reason why we want to strengthen the glutes is you'll see this all the time. People's knees kind of come in. It's called the dynamic valgus. And when the knee comes in, that puts a lot of stress in the ACL, and that leads to those ACL tears when we have enough force, like we're decelerating, when we're changing direction, or that Euro step. And the reason why we want to strengthen the glutes is the glutes help limit the knee from coming in towards our body. They help rotate the hip out. So when we strengthen that hip muscle, whenever we're landing from a jump or doing these certain movements, the hip muscles are able to maintain that knee in the proper position and not put excessive dynamic valgus. So that was at the hip. Now we can look into the foot and ankle. So the foot and ankle is the first point of contact. So whenever you're landing, your foot has to absorb the force, and if it's too unstable, if you overpronate too much, then it's going to lead to forces up the knee and the knee comes in. So working on not only your hip stability, but also your foot stability. So really working those foot muscles. We have the soleus, the posterior tibialis, all these muscles and the calf muscles that help provide stability in the foot, and then just doing single leg exercises that are going to target both the foot and the hip to provide stability at the knee, because the ankle and the hip are both very mobile, and the knee is supposed to be that stable joint. So if we provide stability from the hip and the ankle, that's going to allow that knee to be in its natural stability position. The second way to decrease your risk for ACL injuries, especially the non-contact ones, are improving your deceleration mechanics. So meaning when we're changing direction, we're really bending at the knee and the hip. And it kind of goes back into the hip and ankle stabilization. If your hip and ankle muscles aren't strong and can't stabilize the knee, so whenever we're changing directions or when we're landing, if those aren't stable, then the knee's gonna start doing a little bit more movement than it's supposed to. It might dive in towards the midline of your body, and that's gonna increase your risk for those ACL tears. Another thing is with these mechanics, deceleration mechanics, it's shown in the research that whenever you're changing direction or decelerating, and you're decelerating with a minimal knee and hip bend, that increases your risk for that ACL tear. So teaching our athletes, soccer, basketball, when we're stopping, we're bending at the hip and knee. That's gonna allow us to use our muscles to help control our knee, as opposed to when we're not bending so much the knee and hip, we have minimal knee bend, that's gonna put that ACL at risk. So really correcting these mechanics are gonna play a huge role in decreasing your ability to get that ACL tear non-contact wise. The third way for you to decrease your risk for an ACL tear is improving your ankle mobility, specifically dorsiflexion range of motion. Dorsiflexion is the ability for the ankle to bend forward. The reason we say that is because if the ankle can't bend forward, the way it's going to travel forward is by traveling to the inside part of your body. So it's going to overpronate. When we overpronate, our knee tends to come inward towards our body even more. So when we think about that with the deceleration mechanics, if we're jumping and we're landing and stopping and our knees coming inward because we don't have enough mobility to allow our knee to go forward, it's going to come inward It's going to put you at risk for those ACL non-contact injuries. So really working on that ankle mobility. We have a great videos on improving your ankle mobility. We'll put that in our description below. But ankle mobility is a simple thing you can start working on to really improve that range of motion and allow that knee to be in its optimal position. Our last way to decrease your risk for non-contact ACL injuries is strengthening your posterior chain, your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves. So anterior chains just means here the quads, the front part of your leg. Posterior chain is more the back of the leg. A lot of basketball athletes and just a lot of athletes in general are more quad dominant. When they're quad dominant, then we can't have that, the hamstrings don't have that perfect co-contraction of the hamstring and quad. So we want to really strengthen our hamstring glute muscles, because the hamstring, first of all, it's a secondary stabilizer of the ACL. It helps protect that ACL. So we want to help build that up. But also whenever we land from any movement, stop, or do any kind of movement, we need to have a co-contraction of the quad and the hamstring to protect the knee joint. If the quad's too strong, we turn to become a little bit more quad dominant and the quad takes over. We want to have that ratio closer so the hamstring can really help out the quad and help stabilizing the knee. So really building up that posterior chain, the hamstring is going to be huge to help decrease your risk for these ACL non-contact injuries. All right, guys, so those are the top 4 ways for you to really work on to decrease your risk for an ACL injury. So I'll give you a quick little summary. So the first one is you really want to work on those glutes and also the ankle, the hip stabilizer muscles and the ankle stabilizer muscles. Then we also want to work on our mechanics, our deceleration mechanics. So that's where all the ACL non-contact injuries occur, landing, stopping. We also then have to really work on our ankle mobility. Our ankle mobility is going to allow us to improve our mechanics and get us in those better positions. And the final one is really working on that posterior chain, the hamstring, the glute. Hopefully you guys learned a lot about decreasing your risk for ACL injuries. If you guys have any questions, comment below, send us an email. If you guys want to work with us online or in person in Southern California, send us an email. But hit the follow button, subscribe to our channel, and share this with friends and family. We are the Basketball Doctors. Let's ball for life.